Got my Warcraft shirt on. I am ready for action. Oh my god, finally this movie came out. What's going on, Cave Dwellers? My name is Gabe, your resident Cave Dweller Lord, and today there are two things we've got going on right now. Two major things we got going on. One, it's my face. First time you're seeing my face, 45 subscribers in, you're already seeing my face. And two, it's my first movie review. My very first movie review for Warcraft. Now, this was a very complicated movie for me to come up with a consensus on, because this movie is made for two people mainly. It's made for fans and it's made for casual moviegoers. This is not a movie that is made for people who are like, I enjoy movies for their art and their like, it's not made for people like that. This movie is made for people who love to see things getting crushed, who love to see orcs doing stuff, who sort of maybe want to see humans do stuff, and just love fantasy, whatever. Like, now let's talk about the characters. First we got Durotan, right? He's this cool, awesome leader on the orc side, right? He's all about honor, valor, just like being as good of a soldier as he possibly can. That's Durotan. And on the human side, you got this guy named Lothar, and he's played by probably the weirdest main character I've seen in a movie this year. Like, this guy, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this so far, but he does this thing where he's like, every time he turns and to stare at someone, he does this thing where he goes. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. What is that? I've never seen Vikings. This is the guy's he's from the show Vikings on the History Channel. I've never seen Vikings. If he does that in Vikings, I will never watch that show in my life, ever. Now back to Durotan. Durotan is hands down the best part of this movie. He's just the coolest character I've seen that is, this coolest type of character I've seen in a very long time. First of all, he's strong as hell. This guy hits like a truck. That's first. Second of all, the way he's portrayed is incredibly accurate to the lore. By the way, I'm a huge Warcraft junkie. I love Warcraft. He's so accurate to the lore, and the way he's portrayed is incredibly well done and accurate, and it's just, he's an intimidating presence. He's played by Toby Kebbell, who was in one of the best movies of 2014 and one of the worst movies of 2015. And I think his performance is great in this movie. I think he carries this movie as a character. And then Lothar is just such a letdown, and I didn't like him at all. I didn't like anyone on the human side, for that matter. The human side, I just couldn't care less. I think Duncan Jones is an incredible director. I thought Moon was a great movie. I thought Source Code was a great movie. He's a great director. He's a very competent director. He knows exactly what he wants his movies to be about. He also usually works with very competent writers and very competent producers and cinematographers. He's very good with what he does. In this movie, he did not portray the humans as they could have been portrayed if they were done by a Peter Jackson or Guillermo del Toro or someone like that who can bring genuine emotion on a human level. Because when you have a movie like Warcraft, you really need to tell stories. This is a lore-based universe that is driven by characters and story. It is not driven, I mean, of course the battles and all that stuff, they mean something, but the characters are so pivotal to this chain of events. And you need your humans to be relevant. You need them to mean something. And in this movie, they didn't, and they really dropped the ball. And the fact that they take up 50% of the screen time, that's not a good sign. Now, for the other orcs were also really great. There's also a half-breed character who is played by Paula Patton, who I just didn't enjoy as a whole. I thought that her story could have gone places, but it just, again, wasn't executed properly. And there were moments that just, she didn't seem right. She didn't fit, and that sucks because she took up so much screen time compared to other amazing characters like Durotan and Orgrim Doomhammer, who I totally forgot to mention. Orgrim Doomhammer is friggin' awesome in this movie. He's so cool. He's also like, he's probably the second coolest character in the movie. This movie should have been called Orcraft, because honestly, if this movie was just about orcs, that would have been so awesome. Because the orcs are just so much better. Why the human sucks? Oh man. Another gripe I have with this movie is the pacing. The pacing of this movie was just incredibly all over the place. 1 minute you're here, the next you're here. Because this movie is juggling two storylines. It's juggling two storylines that are rich with lore. So it has to get it right. And it didn't, because you're talking about orcs here and humans here, and it's just, they drop the ball on the pacing also, because you go from battle to this to another battle, to this, to this, to that. It's like, why is this guy reading, and now they're marching, and now they're fighting orcs, and now orcs are talking about this. It was all over the place. Pacing, no, Duncan, no. Now, I don't just want to knock on this movie. There were some really great things that they did that were executed very well, because again, Duncan Jones is a very competent director, and he shows that in a lot of different scenes in this movie. For example, there was a fight between two orcs. I'm not gonna say who. There was a very intense fight between two orcs that had a lot riding on it, and the lead up to it was amazing. It was so well done, and you can tell the way the orcs, the way they're chanting in the background, the energy was there, the flow, it felt amazing. And they start fighting, and there's this part where they're going at it, and it cuts, and you're just like, why? And then there's this other, right at the beginning of the movie, they're introducing the cities. If you're a fan of the lore, you'll know Ironforge and Stormwind. If you're not, you're gonna have no idea what I'm talking about, so don't even bother. But for me, I nerdgasmed like all over myself when I saw Ironforge. The way Ironforge was presented at the beginning of this movie was just, it was amazing. They had I'm a World of Warcraft fan. I'm not a fan of the original game. I'm a World of Warcraft fan. So when I saw Ironforge, and I saw that molten lava, and those big anvils, and all that stuff, and the dwarves, oh my god, the dwarves. Why were there not more dwarves? Why were there not more dwarves? It was incredible, and the way they presented Stormwind was also amazing. It was a perfectly accurate representation of Stormwind and Ironforge and Goldshire. The Goldshire Inn was represented perfectly, as well as other lands like the Orc land, Outworld was also represented very well, and there were little Easter eggs here and there for hardcore Warcraft fans, but if you're not a fan, you wouldn't understand it. I sound so elitist, I apologize. But yeah, so again, I don't want it to make it seem like this movie is awful, because it's not. It's really not a bad movie. I actually quite enjoyed it. It's just, again, the human side. I enjoyed it because I'm a fan. This movie's fan service galore. Just right off the bat, this movie is fan service galore. That's like what it's all about. It's a movie for fans, by fans. Duncan Jones, a lot of people who acted in this movie were all amazing, just hardcore fans of the game, and they made a movie by fans for fans, and they lost that sense of, they just assumed you knew who all these guys were. And that's not the case with a lot of different people. So ultimately, final verdict, whatever you want to call it, this movie, if you're going into it to see, like, you're not gonna get Mad Max Fury Road. You're not gonna get The Revenant. You're not gonna get a ton of other great action movies that were given to us in the last 5 years. You're gonna get Warcraft. Don't go into this movie expecting Lord of the Rings. Don't go into this movie expecting a toned down Game of Thrones. If we're talking fantasy here, you're not gonna get that. You're getting Warcraft. You're getting a movie by fans, for fans, unfortunately. But if you're a fan, you should 100%, no, scratch that, 1,000, no, scratch that, infinity% see this movie. This is a movie for you if you're a fan. Listen to me. If you're a fan, see this movie. If you're not a fan, don't see this movie. I'm just gonna be straight up with you. If you're not a fan, do not see this movie. You're gonna waste 2 hours of your time. You could go off and do something else. I don't know. Just don't see this movie if you're not a fan. Anyways, guys, that was my first movie review. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, favorite, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll catch you guys on the flip.